Welcome everybody to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, Attention and ADHD coach Jeff Copper. And today I want to talk about verbal processing. It's a term that's been coined by the ADHD coaching industry. I'm not so sure, from what I understand from research, it's a really good term, but needless to say, we use it. So I want to kind of explain what it is. And I think this has been very insightful for me over the years. But basically, many of those with ADHD, not to talk is not to think. And often they talk, and most people think that they're having a conversation, and they're really not. They're really just kind of talking to themselves out loud. So this is going to be a little bit longer video because I'd like to kind of walk through the science of this that I've learned to kind of talk about how it relates. Years ago, I interviewed Dr. Russell Barkley on his notion that ADHD is a self-regulation issue. And in that interview, he talked about how executive functioning is very important. You have the back part of your brain, which is where you learn and store information, but the front part is where you take the stuff in the back and you execute it. We've done lots of videos on working memory and different types of things to illustrate this. So what's really cool is that play is about organizing, sequencing, putting things together, and we're lucky because if you put a 3-year-old on a carpet and they're playing with something, often they're thinking about what they're doing, only it's really cool, they're talking out loud to themselves. It's public. You and I can actually observe and witness the child playing and talking to themselves. And this is very normal, very appropriate developmentally. Somewhere between age 3 and 5, that verbal conversation that you and I can hear becomes privatized. It moves into their head. Self-talk. It's a real thing. I won't spend more time on this video talking about the background on that, but we know that that's real. Same thing happens with play. As you begin to see Legos, if you will, a kid, and they're manipulating them, they begin to kind of imagine them in our minds and kind of juggling it. Well, the problem with those with ADHD is often their working memory is relatively short or relatively small, and they struggle with that. If you go to YouTube and Google Attention Talk Video and working memory, you'll find a few videos I've done on that and some attention exercises to help you witness that. So the bottom line is those with ADHD, because they have a hard time holding that all in their mind and juggling it, often they need to get it out. And instinctively, I've found over the years that they have a tendency to talk out loud, and we call that verbally processing. And as I describe it, it's not to talk, it's not to think. And the rest of the world gets very confused by this because they find those with ADHD talk, very wordy, and they try to get them to be quiet. What they don't realize is often they're not having a conversation with you, they're actually talking out loud. Now, it can be confusing because they'll weave in and out of talking out loud and a conversation, which makes it difficult. But if you begin to make this distinction, if you're supporting somebody with ADHD or you do have it, it changes the game and allows you to manage it. So one of my favorite stories is an individual that I coached many years ago who began mirror back. I think that you're a verbal processor. Not to talk is not to think. And this particular person didn't like that idea because they felt it very confining, like I've got to rely on somebody to go talk to out loud in order for me to process stuff. And as I've said many times before, don't focus on the outcome, focus on the awareness. Because if you focus on the awareness and understand what's going on, many times unique solutions and great ideas will reveal themselves, where if you just focus on the outcome, it kind of puts attention blinders on. So I told you everything leading up to this because this is a great story. This particular individual, again, didn't want to be a verbal processor, but one day was driving down the road and noticed that they had been thinking through a problem and not getting anywhere with it. And all of a sudden they said, it's like you jumped, Jeff Copper, you were on my shoulder. And they began to, well, I guess I'm a verbal processor. And in that moment, they looked up and they saw a Walmart. Kind of interesting, a Walmart. And so the person actually called me after they got out of the Walmart and told me the story and said, I saw the Walmart, I drove into the parking lot intentionally, and I went to the front door and walked in. And they said, you know something? The thing about Walmart is they have greeters. And the greeters are going to say, hey, can I help you with something? So he walked in. Sure enough, there was a greeter. Can I help you with something? And he said, yeah. Where are your mops? Actually, I just need to talk out loud for a minute. Went on for about 90 seconds, had an aha, turned to the greeter, thanked him very much for his help, walked out the store down where the cash registers were, got into the car, and gave me a call. And I'm saying this because this person with ADHD, who didn't have a lot of working memory and needed to talk out loud for them to process and solve problems, discovered a real unique situation when they owned the fact that they were, and used a Walmart greeter to solve their problem without the Walmart greeter even knowing what they were doing with a perfect stranger. And oddly enough, this happens, or this can happen for many of those with ADHD who begin to understand that they need to talk in order to think, and that if they're having some problems, they should go seek this stuff out. Now, you can do it with strangers, you can do it with family members, you can really do it in some very, very creative ways. You might be surprised. Unlike this individual who felt constrained, if you will, thinking that they were verbal processors and would have to rely on somebody, actually opened up to the world and found there's a gazillion different ways for them to do it and began to rely on their creativity. So, what I hope that you got with this, from this video is a little bit of insight, particularly if you have ADHD and you find yourself talking a lot. If this resonates with you, hopefully the science kind of explains the why. It's easier for you to talk, you understand what's going on, and you will begin to use your creativity in order to go process out loud so you can solve your problems and move forward. We hope you've enjoyed this tip. For more tips, subscribe to Attention Talk Video on YouTube and you'll be notified. If you would like to learn a little bit more about me, my name is Jeff Copper. My website is digcoaching.com. Would love to hear from you. So we hope you enjoyed this tip and the background leading up to it. Take care.